So I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, and our first speaker is Muir, and she's going to speak on early childhood intervention. She's since commencing in developing early childhood intervention sector in the early 80s with an education background, and seen enormous changes and developments in both service delivery and the availability for families. And so over to you, Anne, and welcome as our very first speaker.
Good morning, my name's Anne Muir and I'm going to present to you this morning on early childhood intervention, a key worker approach. This presentation has been prepared on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Congratulations to SWAN Australia for presenting the Disability Transition Conference today, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute. It would certainly be fair to say that this isn't my preferred way of communicating, so we'll see how it goes. When we see a child within the context of a family, of a community, and as such, the key worker will work with the child in that context. ECIA has done considerable work on best practice in early childhood intervention for many years, and have recently presented the core guidelines of 4 quality areas underpinned by the 8 basic practices. Quality area 1 is the family. It encompasses family-centred and strength-based practice and culturally responsive practice. And quality area 2 focuses on inclusion and looks at participatory practice and engaging the child in natural environments. Quality area 3 is teamwork, and of course it looks at collaborative teamwork practice and capacity building practice. And quality area 4 looks at universal principles. That looks at evidence-based standards, accountability and practice, and focuses on an outcome-based approach. Please see the website, the link for the website for ECIA. There are very valuable resources in there that I'm sure you'll find useful. When we talk about service delivery in early childhood intervention services today, we talk very often about a key worker model or a transdisciplinary practice. And to set a context for that, a transdisciplinary practice in the ECIS situation is a team of people with parents at the centre working together with a shared responsibility across different professional disciplines. A transdisciplinary team may include speech pathologists, occupational therapists, teachers, physiotherapists, psychologists, music therapists, allied health assistants, and of course, the parent and the child and the family at the centre of that. Each team member shares their skills with each other so that any one of the team can put the strategies together to develop and support an individual family. This person is called the key worker. You'll see a group of people meeting together in a COVID-safe way in a park, building relationships. Of all successful teams and all successful communities really is communication and a sense of working together. We need to focus on the development of positive relationships and partnerships to achieve anything and to work together as a team, because as Helen Keller rightly says, alone we can do so little and together we can do so much. So we want to work with all of our communities, and we want to work with all of our team members and all of the families to support people to achieve the outcomes they need and want. I think really that SWAN is a perfect example of people working together to achieve these goals and to provide peer support, investigate the evidence and share the knowledge. And I congratulate all of you for contributing to that. In a key worker model, we work on the development of relationships. We aim to build on family and children's confidence and capacity using an enabling approach and inclusive response. The focus is on individual support for children and families, utilising child and family strengths together with thoroughly researched evidence-based practice and delivered through a transdisciplinary team of allied health and education specialists. It's a model that's flexible according to the needs of each child and family, and it's a model where the family is at the centre and parents are critical members of the team. It's a model that supports inclusion, provides advocacy, liaises with other professionals to the extent that the family desires. It empowers families through timely support and skill sharing. It provides non-judgmental and mutually trusting relationships with child and family. From my perspective, it's how we can develop an holistic program for a child and family. It's how we can work together and share the skills we need and have good communication and ensure that all aspects of the child are considered. One of the things that's focused on in a key worker model, and one of the things that we focus on in our lives, and often gives us the biggest challenge, is transitions. And that's the focus of your conference today. So I thought I would spend some time talking about transitions and look at that in terms of children coming in, going out of childcare settings, of preschools or schools. But I think in reality, we're in transition all the time. Many of us will have identified, particularly in Victoria, over the last year, that we're transitioning from being in lockdown to not in lockdown, to partial lockdown, to having boundaries that we've never had before. And it's difficult. It's difficult. The difficult time is the transition. Once we settle into something and we can work with it. But considering the options, considering how we work in a new environment is what's difficult for us. One of the things that we focus on to support families is options, and support families through the key worker model to consider their choices and to help them reach decisions. I think informed choice is the basis of effective family function and effective decisions for all of your children, whether your child has a disability, a delay, or is typically developing. Transitions and decisions are big for everyone. In our team, we focus on assisting you with transitions through the provision of information and through advocacy on your behalf when you're looking at options for your children. This might take the form of coordinating consultancy from team members to the staff of a new setting, or advising and helping families to coordinate an application for support funding when that's appropriate. It might assist with entry to school, contributing to and collating support information and requirements. And it might just be providing information, advice and support around the support services available once they move on from early childhood intervention. Another important thing might be that they link with other families and they have opportunities to chat and consider their decisions together. One of the most significant transitions we consider in early childhood is moving on from preschool into school. And so we tend to look at what do you do after kindergarten. That's been the focus of many people we've worked with in the last while, which is why I've been focused on it here. You might have prep at mainstream school, special developmental school or specialist school. You might have a dual enrolment, some days at mainstream school and some days at a specialist setting. You might do a second year of funded 4-year-old kindergarten. You might have access to bridging or pre-prep programs. This isn't a limited list. These are some possibilities, and it will depend where you're located geographically and the support you've got. I've looked at these dates and eligibility issues from a Victorian perspective. So I hope that you're able to adjust if that's not where you're located. In Victoria, children are eligible to start school if they are 5 years of age before the 30th of April of their prep year. Children, in fact, need to have a school exemption notice if they are to start school after their 6th birthday. And all children are entitled to attend their local mainstream school. It is important to remember, and I often stress this for families, whilst all children are entitled to attend their local school, it may not be that that's the best option for your child or indeed for yourself. It's also important to remember that you can change your mind. No decision has to last for their child's entire school life. As their needs change, so may their school requirements. One of the things we're really supportive of and encourage is visiting the schools. I think you've got a much greater chance of getting a full understanding of how they operate if you're actually there in person. Obviously, COVID times have made this more difficult for people, and so there have been online and visual tours. But I think wherever possible, it's good to visit the school. I think it gives you a sense of the school's attitude to children with a disability, or in fact all children. I think it's often really useful to go on open day or the school fete or something like that, and not just on a guided tour, so that you see the real situation. I think when you go and look at a school, you get a chance to look at their parental involvement, at their inclusive philosophy, at their experience in adjusting the curriculum or meeting the needs of all students. It gives you a chance to look at parent involvement and whether that's tokenistic or whether it's real. And it gives you a chance to look at interactions between staff, students and principals. One of the main things that's we've considered over time and we've heard feedback from families about is that it's good to picture your child in this setting. We had one experience many years ago now in our service where a parent had said that her child just wasn't ready for school. And we'd been saying, well, it remains your choice, but we felt ourselves that it was in the child's best interest. Ultimately, the mother said to us on the school day, as soon as we put the school uniform on, we knew that it was right. Why didn't you tell us to put the school uniform on last June? Anyway, that's a learning. I think when you're visiting schools, you also want to consider the physical environment, the buildings, playground, fences, gates, toilets and transport. You want to consider the educational environment, specialist programs, special education services, inclusive philosophy and academic standards. You also want to consider family functioning activities like out-of-school hours care. What you can do now, if you haven't done it before, is look at schools and gather information. Talk with your child's kindergarten teacher, enrol your child at school, commence the process of funding application if required, and talk with your key worker. Other services you may find in a transdisciplinary service include the following. I've just put them there for your consideration. Thank you. I'm very happy to discuss any of these issues with you at another time. I'm keen to remain within our 15 minutes today, but feel free to contact me on the email address here or on the phone number, and enjoy the photo of one of the children in the service I work in and a very talented speech pathologist. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anne, for that presentation. And I'm just wondering if we've got any questions from our audience participants today.
There is one question in the chat. My daughter is only 4 and will do a second year of funded kinder next year. She doesn't stand or walk yet. I'm wondering if schools need to have ramps and be accessible, inclusive. Did you want to answer that, Anne?
Ideally they do. Some schools though are quite difficult to make fully accessible, and the sooner you can start considering the schools you want to attend, the better chance they have of addressing those issues. In inner city Melbourne, of course, there are a number of 2-storey schools, and full access to all of those schools is often problematic.
And someone's asked, how do you apply for funding? Is it the school or is it up to the parent themselves to initiate applying for funding?
No, the school will apply for funding, and once again, that's one of the reasons to enrol as soon as you can, and to request the organisation of a PSG, a parent support group. And then you'll need to be part of collecting rather a lot of reports and information to support the application.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite a complex process, but well worth getting the supports for your child when they start school. Does anyone
and one of the
have...
things is that so early childhood intervention services and key workers are very able to assist with this process. They're very used to the process, so do get support from those wherever you're able.
Yes, I know our personal journey, the ECIS was fabulous in initiating all that. And, you know, I think the ECIS model, the key worker model, is such a great support for SWAN families because it's a holistic approach and it sort of brings everything together. So, yeah, I would certainly encourage it. It's the key model for SWAN families to support them. Someone's just asked the question, can you enrol at multiple schools? Really uncertain of her needs.
Yes, you can, or you can do that, or you can enrol at a school and put the application for funding in through that school and have that transferred to another school at the appropriate time when you have clarified a decision.
Lots of good advice there. I can't see any more questions in the chat, but I know, Anne, you put your contact details up on the last slide. So people can always contact you direct, or they can contact you via SWAN. There is just, sorry, one last question. When you're saying connecting with the parent support group, can you please clarify what that is?
There are a range of parent support groups. There's Association for Children with a Disability, and SWAN. Is this?
This family, I'm not sure whether in Victoria. I think what you're talking about, you weren't talking about student support group meetings, were you, Anne?
I did mention PSG meetings, program, yeah, so student support meetings, that's right. And you would organise that through the school, which is just a group of people relevant for that child.
That's right. So you'd meet with the parents, the teacher, maybe an allied health professional, maybe a key support worker from an ECAS centre, and you discuss the child's needs in that meeting. I hope that answers your question, Natalie. And then sorry.
I may not have been clear in that, but please contact me on the phone or via email if you want further information.
Yeah. And one just last question. We did the KISS application for kinder. My daughter will need a full-time support at school. Is this possible? And I know our next speaker, Roz, is going to talk about the KISS application. So she might go into that a little bit more. But again, it's about putting in for funding to get the support at school, and you do that prior to your child starting school. Did you want to add anything else, Anne? And I will put your email in the chat so people can email you if they would like to.
In relation to that last question, the KISS application is quite a different process to the application that goes in for the school situation. In a state school, that's called a E&Q, and that's quite a comprehensive document. But you would be supported through the school or the Early Childhood Intervention Service to provide the information for that process.
Yeah, and I think it would be similar in New South Wales, Natalie, with asking the question. Each state has their own way of doing things. The Department of Education websites for each state have lots of great information about how to go about the process. So I'd encourage you to reach out to those websites and your early childhood intervention service, such as Plumtree if you're in New South Wales, or Calparan if you're in WA. And there's many great ECAS supports in Victoria as well. So thank you. Thanks for answering those questions, Anne. And your email is now in the chat, so people can email you. Thank you.
Fabulous.
All right.